Life is full of work and stress. Parenting can be a mess. Being a woman is hard enough without adding on that extra stuff. We'll cover topics of every kind. Helpful resources we will find. We'll even drink a bottle of wine. Join us. It will be a real good time.
Hi, I'm Amanda,
And I'm Nikki.
and welcome to Working Mom's Wine, where we drink a bottle of wine.
And whine about our crazy, stressful, busy working mommy
Mhm.
lives.
And today we're going to eat in front of you.
That's right. We're having a charcuterie board, which is the perfect pairing for some wine. We're doing a double dose today, a double recording. So get ready for a goofy episode because this is round 2 for us.
This time we're eating, though.
We're getting tipsy.
So there's that.
Today's wine is one of my favorites that I get at home all the time. It's a Bada Box Nighthawk Bourbon Barrel Aged Cabernet Sauvignon.
That sounds like a superhero wine.
It does. Aging rich Cabernet Sauvignon in fine bourbon barrels doubles down on Nighthawk's bold, intense style. Endlessly deep black fruit flavors layer with sweet spice and caramel intrigue for a daring take on Cabernet Sauvignon. This big red is ready for anything, from toasting a friend's good news to trekking through the backcountry.
Oh boy.
It does look, very adventurous. It's got the sky. It's got a little crow here on a barrel.
That's a Nighthawk.
Oh, you're right. Why did I call that a crow? It doesn't even look like a crow. It's got
it kind of does.
hooky beak.
Yeah, you're right. If you think about it in terms of a hawk, you're right. But if you just look at it's a black outline of a bird.
It's a black bird. Anyway, that's our wine for today, and it's delicious.
And
It's
our
one of my
wine for
go-tos.
today is about back to school.
That's right.
Because it sucks.
It's back to school time. We're feeling the crunch.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with I got this really cool email weeks before school started, and it said, "Hey, come to this website and buy a box that's already pre-made of all the school supplies you're supposed to need." And I thought, wow, that's really cool, but I didn't want to pay the money for that because I knew I could probably get some things cheaper on other sites. But I took the list of what was in the box because they hadn't published our shopping lists yet. And I bought everything on the list, thinking I was ahead of the game. Then they released the list, and it was completely different from what came in the box.
Of course it was.
I even wound up warning one of Ari's friends' moms because she said she used the box. And I said, you might want to double check it against your shopping list because what was on the list of what was in the box was not what's on the shopping list. And there was some point where I read in the newsletter that the school we go to is no longer doing the same list as the rest of the district.
Oh,
so that could be what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I was annoyed. I had to do school shopping twice.
That sucks.
So, but I only have one kid, so
We're going to mix the resources in on this one. So my pro tip is don't just get on Amazon because of their quick shipping. I started to order my things that I still needed on Amazon, and I was like, I thought you could get a box of crayons for 50 cents, and I went to Target, and sure enough, you can, but that's not what Amazon's charging you. So with literally every item that was on my list, I paid maybe a third of what Amazon was going to charge me. So don't do Amazon, do Target pickup.
Every time I put it in Staples, Target, and Amazon, and I picked which one was the cheapest.
Nice.
And I had an order from each.
Nice.
But it's annoying.
Yes, very annoying.
Around here, it's you could go shop in person, but even then, half the stuff is gone and not restocked. So online is kind of my go-to.
And if you're going on tax-free weekend like everyone else, it's a way crowded. I don't want to deal with that. But
100%.
So this is probably normal for most people, but I'm gonna whine about it because it's not normal for me. The last couple years, so Lucas is 8th grade this year. He would have to get up at 6 o'clock, and he would be able to shower and eat his breakfast and having a leisurely morning before the bus came at 7 whatever. They moved the middle school times back for when you show up and when you get released by an hour. So now, oh my God. Cool. I'm not dropping cheese in here. This one's falling apart.
Oh no.
So now Eliana and Lucas both have to get up at 5:50, and that's with them having showered the night before. Otherwise, it would have had to be earlier.
That's
So-
insane.
Yeah. So I get up at 5:30. I have never in my life gotten up at 5:30 in the morning unless I'm leaving to travel to Florida to go to Disney.
Right?
So to have to do it every single weekday of my life really sucks. So even when I let them sleep until 5:50, they are just hoping to God they get dressed and eat their breakfast on time to get to the bus on time. And in the meantime, I'm making their food and everything. So that sucks, having to get up at 5:30 every single day so that I can get my children up at 5:50 every single day. And boy, it's going to be really great when they decide they want to do a before school activity. And Lucas was in advanced math last year, and I'm sure they'll ask him again this year. And that requires us to drop him off. I mean, honestly, though, maybe that will be... Well, no, because last year they were on the old schedule. So if he's in that math class and if it's still before school like it was last year, I'll have to drop him off earlier, which means we'll all have to get up earlier.
It's very early.
I don't know, like, what that means for high school. Did the high school also move themselves back an hour? Am I going to have to deal with that?
Probably not. I would think that'd be the same time because, like, how early can you?
That's what I'm wondering. Because the high school would already be earlier than the middle school traditionally. So maybe the high school just keeps its time and they're just like, well, now you're doing it in middle and high. But
I can't imagine. Ari doesn't have to get on the bus till 8:20.
I miss those days.
We get up at 7. I log into work right away and then kind of help her through her morning from my desk.
Yeah. Silas is getting on the bus at 7:30 now, which isn't terrible. Like, that's, you can deal with that.
Yeah.
But it's still earlier than we're used to.
Yeah. Yep. But I have heard the middle schoolers talking about how they get on the bus, or they have to get up at like 6:30 or something. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not looking forward to that. This is our first year on the bus. It's been exciting for Ari. She's very lucky in that we are very close to the school. So her bus rides are very short.
We were right next to the school.
And most of the kids on her bus are our neighbors. There's like one other subdivision next to us that they pick up in. And it seems like a lot of the kids are younger, like around her grade. And there's not a lot of issues on this bus. So thankful for that.
Well, and you had one very exciting bus pickup.
I did. So twice a week, usually once a week, but every other week it's twice a week. Ari's dad is picking her up from the bus, but he just, comes to my house instead of doing the parent pickup like we did last year.
I was curious how that worked.
So he came to the parking lot and I met him out there. I don't know if I'll keep doing that, but the first week I wanted to make sure he made it on time and was there. And I like to take her backpack from her and give her her iPad. So she has her iPad at her dad's for the evening, and I have her backpack full of stuff to figure out. Although,
that's fair, because then that doesn't end up at his house.
Yeah. The only issue I haven't thought through yet is homework. Although I wound up being in charge of that last year anyway. Well, surprise, surprise.
And if your school is anything like mine, you have all week to get it done. It's not like a daily homework.
Right, exactly. But I thought to myself last year I was not going to take that on as my total responsibility because I do that a lot with him, where I just take on everything and he gets to be the fun parent. And I thought, okay, he's going to be involved in her school and I'm going to make him do homework too and do all those things. But this year we do have a teacher who is very light on homework, which is good. She's only in first grade.
Yeah.
So I think it might be something I can continue to manage myself to get done by the end of the week, but we'll see. But anyway, I went to meet him at the bus, all that to say. And I was also puppy sitting for my mom. And it's right around the time that I normally feed my dogs dinner. I've been feeding them early because they have tummy issues. And I find that if I feed them earlier, they have those issues before I go to sleep, as opposed to waking me up at 11:30 when
Her dogs are so high maintenance.
They're very high maintenance. They have pancreatitis. They have all kinds of stuff. They're super old. So I started to feed my dogs. I didn't want to leave them in the house with their food dishes with the other dog and not know who ate what.
Yeah.
So I put him on a leash and I took him with me. And we walked down to the bus. Met Ari's dad. Did the swap of the iPad. And the bus pulls up. And we're watching, and we watch the two little boys get off the bus and run to their parents. And there's also 3 girls. And the older girl gets off the bus and walks up, and no other kids seem to be getting off the bus. And I'm like, where is Ari and where's her little friend? So I look at the bus driver, and he's looking back, and eventually I see a little head bobbing through the little runway on the bus, or whatever you call it, the little aisle. See a little head bobbing. So I'm like, okay. Off the bus comes Ari's little friend. And then I watch the bus doors close and the little bar swing in front of the bus. And I was like, so I've got the dog leash in my hand, and I'm going like this at the bus driver, like, stop, my kid hasn't got off the bus. Where's my kid?
Oh my God.
Wanting to make sure she even got on the bus to begin with, And he always has his little window open. So I was like, hey. And he stopped and he looked back. He put the bar back out and he says to the window, I didn't realize she had so many chores. I was like, huh? She gets off the bus. Her backpack's hanging on her arm. Her water bottle's in her hand. Her lunch bag is in her hand. Something else was in her hand. She had obviously emptied the contents of her backpack on the bus to show her friend something, and was not realizing they were there and trying to carry it all off the
My
bus.
children will do that all the time. I'm like, keep your stuff in your bag. What are you doing?
Yes, we had a chat about that. And I think...
it doesn't matter. It'll still happen.
Oh, yeah. I said, look, you got to be able to get off that bus when it's time, and you got to be paying attention to when it's your bus stop, or you might get left behind in the bus. Mommy and daddy will be freaked out. You will be freaked out. The bus driver will be freaked out. So please don't. So the new rule is we don't open the backpack unless it's an utter emergency to open the backpack.
We had a sort of similar situation.
Yeah.
So we're in the new house. The kids are on new buses, and the bus comes to the first, it pulls into the subdivision, and there's an intersection of a stop sign right there. Oh, and that's where a lot of the kids get on and off. So Lucas and Ellie, I believe there's a third person that gets on and off with them. There's one older kid in this area that we live in. Mm-hmm. There's also a bunch of kids that are either Silas's age or Jack's age. And I was like, okay, cool. He'll have some bus friends too. Apparently not. Between various custody agreements and parents who choose to pick up at school versus the bus, because we do live very close to the school. Mm-hmm. He's the only bus rider. So every day, Brandon is the one that takes him out to the bus. And I'm trying to think. For Monday... Monday of this week, it was Brandon. But Tuesday, it would have been our mom, because she ended up coming out here. And then Wednesday, it was me. So I don't know why this guy acted so surprised. But the bus driver, he saw Brandon the first time. And then when my mom, who we did not give completely clear instructions to, was waiting closer to our house and not out at that intersection was there, he thought no one was there for Silas. And that should not matter, because once you are past either kindergarten or first grade, I think with kindergarten you have to have a parent out there. With first grade you can get off with a sibling. But he's old enough now that he should be able to just get off. But bus driver was like, oops, there's no parents out here, kept him on the bus, came back around, basically. He did some other drop-offs and came back around. And I wasn't there when this happened because I was at work, and that's why our mom was doing this. But later that night, she's like, oh, just so you know, when Silas got off the bus, he was upset. Something about a friend getting off before him and then him having a long ride and whatever. And I'm like, okay. So he does get a little too emotional about things at times. So I had a talk with him about why that shouldn't matter. And, we don't want to overreact on some things like he does a lot. And he kept trying to say, but that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And I guess, so Brandon overheard me telling him the next morning, like, hey, we're going to be happy on the bus no matter what. Brandon's like, what's that about? I kind of filled him in on what happened. And Brandon got the chance to actually talk to him about it. And that's when we found out that, like, the bus driver had tried to drop Silas off, not seen an adult. Like, when he came back around, he saw our mom and was like, oh, I was expecting the dad, So Brandon found out what really happened and was like, oh, Silas, his bus driver circled back around and then dropped him off. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I made sure I was out there on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And everything went fine, except that when he dropped Silas off, I'm out there standing with Jack and we're waiting for Silas. And we knew he was on there, but the bus driver kept going, Silas. No, I'm not really calling you. But he kept saying his name. And I don't know if he wasn't paying attention or he just had a lot of things to gather. It took him forever to get off the bus. And I'm like, dude, when the bus driver's calling your name, you got to perk up and figure out what's going on and make sure you're paying attention.
I told Ari, there's cars waiting to go.
Waiting
on you to get off the bus.
So he gets off the bus and the bus driver signals us to cross in front of him before he leaves. And I noticed that then he doesn't have his lunchbox. Normally, I would be like, okay, it's in the backpack. But the backpacks this year, the lunchbox is strapped on the front.
Oh.
So I said to Silas, where is your lunchbox? And at that point, he realized he'd left it on the bus and immediately turns around and starts to run in front of the bus.
Oh, no.
I grabbed him. Bus slams to a halt. And I'm like, he left his lunchbox. And the guy was like, oh, okay. Opens the door, gives him his lunchbox. I'm like, my kid almost got ran over by the bus on the third day of school. What is going on?
Was it? Okay. I know what it was, but we also had an incident where the kids were getting off the bus one day and half of them had gotten off and crossed the street and the other half hadn't. And the bus driver was like yelling at them to stop and to wait and do all this stuff. I'm like, wait for him to wave them on. Our normal bus driver doesn't do any of that. Like once the bar is out, you're free to cross and he won't put the bar back in until he's ready to move and he's seen all of you have crossed. But this was like a substitute or something like one day. There was a whole like back and forth between him and the kids. And it was obviously like he wasn't communicating well what he wanted them to do. And they kept trying to do. And then he was like, no. And they'd stop. It was a whole thing. And we were like, why, man? This is not your regular route. Like, just let it go. All the parents are here. Like, everybody has stopped. It was not. Anyway.
Right.
But there was, what was I? There was something else. You talked about it being the third day of the week.
Yeah.
We had a week, Ari and I did. But to top it off, this week was the blue moon, which was 3 full moons. 3 nights in a row of full moon. If you have ever worked in the healthcare or mental health care fields, you know what that means. And we had a week. The first day was fine. Everything was good.
Yeah.
What was that Wednesday that Ari fell? So last year she fell during PE and scraped a big thing under her chin. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And the nurse had called me because it was big enough that they felt like she might need like a consult from a doctor for like facial whatever reconstruction. I don't know what you call it. Because it was deep enough.
Yeah.
But we just like went with it.
Yeah.
So then I got a call this time on Wednesday. And she said, Ari fell at recess. And there was this whole thing in the morning where Ari wanted to wear her Crocs.
This is an annual event now.
Don't wear your Crocs. And she said, it's not PE day. And I said, I get that, but you'll still have recess. And you'll want to run at recess. And you will trip on yourself in those Crocs at recess because you trip walking in those Crocs all the time. But she was insistent, and I said, fine, learn your lesson.
Right.
That's what I get, because it's really my lesson when I have to deal with what happens. So I get the call, and this is like a really intense week at work for me, because we have this big audit thing, and we're having to prep cases to present them and practice presenting them and all this stuff. This is supposed to be a day where I'm basically on call for my entire shift to have to pop into this meeting at any time and present my cases for the first time ever. So I'm on the edge already, and I get this call, and it's the nurse. Ari fell at recess. Not only did she fall while running full speed on the blacktop and landed chin first. Shoved her teeth all together, lost her front baby tooth that was still there. She'd already lost the other one. And granted, it was already loose and like getting ready to fall.
And you were asking questions trying to make sure it was the baby tooth.
Yeah, that's why they called me. They weren't sure if it was a baby tooth.
Yeah, they weren't sure.
Because she had lost the other one, and she was confused about if that one was growing in or if this one was already permanent and that one was growing in. It was a whole confusion thing. And then she had this big scrape under her chin right next to her other scar from last year.
She's going to be such a grizzled veteran by the time she's 20.
And her knee was all banged up and her elbow. And so they called me, and I'm a little bit of a helicopter parent. I'll admit it. I'm a little bit of one. I try to let her do her thing, but I have super high anxiety myself. So a lot of times before she does her thing, I'm prepping her about all the things that could happen while she does her thing. So she's crying.
I'm going to let you finish, but.
She's crying, and the nurse is like, puts me on speakerphone. And basically it was like 3:00, and they get on the bus at 3:50 to come home. So she was like, this is what happened. We wanted to make sure that this was not a permanent tooth because we didn't find the tooth and all this stuff. After we got through all that, Ari was just sobbing. And I've always told her, if you go to the nurse and you want to be picked up, I can come pick you up. I live so close to school. I can leave my job. It's not a problem. So she's like, I want to come home. And she's crying and sobbing. And I tried to take a minute to say, okay, take a deep breath, calm yourself down, and then we'll talk about it. But the nurse kept jumping in and taking control of the conversation. And I get why she does that. Most parents cannot just up and leave like I can. She's probably used to having to convince kids that they're okay and go back to class. Right. And she's like, it's only 25 minutes till you get on the bus. And she's like, it's okay, you can get on the bus. And she's talking Ari into it. And the whole time I keep interrupting and asking, what do you want to do, Ari? Do you want me to come pick you up? Because I don't want her to feel like I won't come pick her up just because the nurse says so. I want her to feel like she has the autonomy to know when she needs me to pick her up and to ask, and that I'll be there for her. Right. So I tried to just take a deep breath, because I'm it's 25 minutes. She will survive for 25 minutes and ride the bus home. And the nurse would tell me to come get her if it was that bad. Once they knew it wasn't a permanent tooth, we're like, okay, it's just scrapes and abrasions or whatever. I felt so bad because she was crying, but she was kind of okay, I guess. And I was like, oh, I just want to go pick you up. It was a whole thing. So she gets off the bus. And she's hobbling. She's limping on this she's a little dramatic.
She hurts her teeth and she's limping off the bus.
Well, her knee was all scraped up.
Oh, okay.
But she's limping, and I'm like, oh my God. So check her out, and she's got a Band-Aid under her chin that is soaked in blood.
Oh,
she's got a big Band-Aid on her knee that we didn't even touch that day, because I was like, I'm not even.
Yeah. Well, and your face will bleed so much more than it needs to.
Yes. And then she shows me the tooth that fell out. And we get home, and an hour later, she's like, oh, and these front teeth next to the front teeth are very loose now. And I'm like, okay. They're still baby teeth, so I'm not too worried. And then we go to dance class. It's the first class of the week. And she didn't want to go, and I kind of talked her into it. She had a fine time while she was there. We get home and park the car, and she's like, oh, a hunk of my tooth is chipped off down here in the back. So I'm thinking to myself, I've had all this dental work I've paid for, and now she has a chipped tooth. And sure enough, she chipped a tooth that had a filling in it. So I'm looking at it, and I can see the color change between the tooth and what looks like the color of the filling. And I'm like, okay, I think she chipped it enough to get to the filling. I don't want it to like crumble apart in her mouth later. It's not causing her any pain or anything. So I let him know what was going on, her dad, and I called the dentist and left a voicemail. And he was like, does she really have to go get it fixed? Like, as if he's going to pay for it if she does. He didn't pay for the first round. And I said, I don't know, but I've invested a lot into this, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't need to be repaired in some other way or fixed or watched or whatever.
Right.
So the dentist calls me back the next day, and they freed up a time in the middle of the day. And this is the day I'm supposed to be on call to present as well. So I had to, get the okay that I could leave in the middle of the day and take her to this appointment, none of which he has to deal with ever. But I digress. So I pick her up from school in the middle of the day, and we run to the dentist, and they do the evaluation. And luckily, they said it's just the outer layer that chipped. What I'm seeing is the color change between the outer layer and the second layer. And because it hasn't penetrated the second layer, we might be okay. So as long as it doesn't hurt her, we're just going to watch it and see what happens. Because if it gets any deeper or there's decay that starts to come, then she has to get another crown.
Yeah.
Which sucks. So we're fingers crossed that tooth is going to stay okay.
Yeah.
But took her back to school, came home, was back in time to do my auditing presentations and stuff. But it was quite a week. It was quite a week of the multi full moons, and I'm done with it.
I have another bus story for this year already, and it's that there's already been a fight on the middle school bus. I think we went all last year without a fight on our bus, and I'm like, we're literally a couple of days. That might have been the same day that Silas didn't get dropped off initially. It was that or the day before. The middle school bus had two kids fighting so much that they had to pull over and break the fight up. And I'm like, I hope at least one of these kids was told they couldn't ride the bus anymore. I just assumed it was a couple of boys, but it was two girls. And one of them, I know, well, one of them is like, people know she's a bully. So basically there was a bully that got involved in a fight with another girl, and it got to the point where they had to pull over to break it up. But, of course, I'm helicopter parenting too, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are my kids safe on the bus? Blah, blah, blah. So it's been an eventful first week for bus occurrences.
It has. There was one morning we went to the bus, and it's the only morning I've seen this parent, the parent of the older girl. I think she's in like 4th grade maybe, sitting on the bus, and we were talking, and she's like, this is her first year riding the bus. And I was like, oh. And she's like, Ari wanted to ride the bus this year because we both did parent pickup last year. And I was like, yeah, she rode it on her field trip. And
Ari was very anti-bus.
Ari was anti-bus the first year. Well, she was bus curious. But I said,
oh my gosh, can we get shirts that say I'm bus curious?
But I said, one new thing at a time. We went to school and stayed away from mom all day for the first time last year because daycare was grandma. So this was our first big venture that way for kindergarten. And I said, okay, maybe next year we try the bus if you want. But she got to ride it on her field trip and loved it. And so she was like, I want to do the bus in 1st grade. And I was like, okay, easier for me. So if you like it and you want to do it and you're excited about it, cool. So I go to put her on the bus, and this mom is like, oh, you're doing the bus this year. And she's like, this is our first year doing it too. She's like, because I was afraid to put her on the bus. She's like, it's terrifying. I said, it's definitely an adjustment. I said, I will never get past the fact that we work so hard to be so careful growing these babies and birthing them in a healthy way and giving them into the hands of whatever daycare or babysitter. And we're so careful about who we pick.
Yeah.
Everything is so careful and so scrutinized. And then they get to school age and we just put them on a bus without seatbelts to a stranger and say, go for it. Like, take my kid away. I don't know your driving record. I don't know who you are. There's no seatbelts on this bus, but please.
It blows my mind that we still don't at least have seatbelts on buses.
I know, it's crazy. So while we're in the parking lot and she's talking about the things that they have avoided the bus for, she said, and you've heard about the bus fights, right? And I was like, excuse me?
What?
I have not.
It's like that meme of that lady from the 40s or whatever.
Yeah.
She's just like, what?
Pardon?
Yeah. Excuse me?
And I never did get the details if there was something specific that happened on this bus last year or
Yeah.
in our district, or if it's just in general knowing the kids fight on the bus.
Yeah.
But it sent me for a loop for a morning.
Yay.
And I was like, oh, God.
I'm going to put a hidden camera on my child on the bus.
I mean, I already keep an AirTag in her backpack, but
you know, I wasn't...
it only works for the ride to the school because the AirTags have to bounce off other iPhones to locate your kid.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it will work on the way to school, but for some reason on the way home, it doesn't update me until she's already with me. So
yeah. So I was like, I've never really messed with that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But after Silas not being taken off the bus, I was like, gee, maybe I should tag him.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be microchipping our children.
Mm-hmm. I've already
Just
started
like the
looking at
pets.
the GPS watches that you can control who they can text and call as well.
He does have and it's an off-brand, like not attached. I mean, there is a phone app, but it's this.
Mm-hmm.
This watch is very limited. But him and Lucas both have smartwatches. But I don't know if that particular one is one where we could be like, "Where's my child right now?" This from the mom who, talking about me for the record, was going to not remove the baby monitors even as they got older, so that if they were in the room with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, I could just like not let them know it was there. And then one day when they're like starting to get a little too frisky, be like, hey, got it out.
I never thought about that because I always had a camera in Ari's room. And then as she got older, there was a night when your daughter came to sleep over.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, I would drop in sometimes and just see what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I would butt in if I felt like they were, like, being mean to each other. Or,
right, like fighting or whatever. I do think it could be handy for that.
Yes.
Because we're lazy.
Well, then one time I dropped in and they were changing into their PJs and I didn't know it. And I was like, ooh. And I backed right out and I was like, this is not good. Yeah. I probably need to take the camera out of the room at this point because they're getting to an age where that's not appropriate.
Well,
and I don't want that to be on the cloud somewhere.
Right.
You know?
I have a friend.
And that's when I got rid of it.
Who was checking in on her daughter when we were at an event.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh my gosh, my kid doesn't have a shirt on. And I'm like, well, when I'm home by myself, sometimes I do stuff like that because it's freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, yeah, but she has a brother. And I'm like, So she's like yelling, but like we're at an event. There's other people there. And she's going, put your shirt on. And I'm like, this is necessary, but also hilarious at the same time.
Yes.
But I'm constantly having to remind my opposite gendered children, hey, you got to be a little more aware of what you're doing, especially when friends are over or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give yourself some privacy. Change in private.
It's so hard for them to make the switch of when that matters and when it doesn't.
And they're not thinking that way. We just are trying to prepare them for the future.
Right.
But
I'm trying to be cautious. Ari asked me just last night, why is it okay for Daddy to see me without my clothes on, but not other people?
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah. Well,
it's so hard to explain to them without explaining sexual attraction and the inappropriate things that can happen there.
And you don't want to talk to them about that before you have to, because you don't want to shift their mind that direction when it's not that direction. But then you also kind of have to because of the world that we live in.
Yep.
So
I just try to keep it as generalized as possible.
Yeah.
Your father has seen you since you were born. You came out naked.
Right.
He's wiped your bottom from your diapers.
Right.
He's helped you change as a baby. So it's not unusual, and he's already seen everything, and it doesn't matter.
And
it's fine.
Quite honestly, there's going to be a day where he doesn't want to see that anymore, you know? So
We'll get there eventually.
We had a household full of girls, and it was the same situation. We
walked around in our bras and underwear because we were hot from the shower.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
Right. And we'd be like,
and I'm like, I'm in
what's
more
the
than
problem?
my swimsuit right now.
Yeah. And then like you get older and you're like, oh, I could see where this would make a dad uncomfortable.
This would be inappropriate.
Go figure.
Poor guy, being the only dude.
I know. He had so much estrogen.
He was the only dude
house.
growing up because he had 4 sisters.
That's true.
And then he was the only dude in our house because he had 3 daughters.
Yep. I I didn't think about it from that perspective, but he was literally just surrounded by estrogen for all of his life.
His whole life.
The only other testosterone in the room was his dad. I think the only other thing I feel like whining about in relation to school starting back up is all the busyness chipping back in. Because
schedules.
I always tell the kids they can do one activity. And then this year we're like, why not? Let's do 2. So not only are Eliana and Silas doing dance like they usually do, but we're doing fall soccer. And I will say that's not year round. And I am like, I'm not going to do summer soccer. Spring, I guess it would depend on the schedules. But like, because soccer is very, we don't care what the weather's like. We're going to play anyway, and we're going to play outside usually. I get more picky about when I allow them to do soccer. But they haven't done soccer in a few years. Eliana had done it once, and then COVID hit, and she was very excited about starting soccer back up with her friend. And Silas wanted to start it, and his friend is in it. And I'm like, okay, we'll do soccer again this year. And what's really funny is I had paid for it back in the day, and then COVID hit, and they canceled everything. And the guy's like, well, you'll have a credit for next time. That was 4 years ago. When we called to sign them up, they still had our credit on the books.
Wow.
Yeah. So I still got to use it for one child.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but we're starting to get, and of course, a lot of these are like parent run. Like you have a parent that volunteers to coach. So we're getting a lot of information at the last minute and all of this stuff. So let's see. We have the kids go to school on Monday, and then Monday at 5:30 is when Eliana's soccer practice starts, which means, of course, we'll have to leave at like 5 to get there. So they're going to get off the bus at 3:30, and then we have to leave at 5. Tuesday, there's nothing after school. Wednesday, as of right now, on Wednesday, Silas's soccer practice and Eliana's dance practice happen very close to each other, to the point where Nikki's going to be taking my daughter to dance class.
They take class at the same time, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, it's Silas.
How did you know it was him?
Because, oh, well, color me surprised.
Ari, stop.
Silas is a loud clapper, and he will loud clap in the car.
That sounds like a toy.
You know what? I was wondering, but I don't think we own any of them. The one that
The
click clacker thingies. So Wednesday we have the double practice. Thursday is nothing after school, and then Friday is Silas's dance class. And then, of course, now every Saturday for the next 7-ish Saturdays are soccer games, and they will each have a game. And then Silas got invited to a birthday party on the first Saturday of the games, and I'm like, well, kind of depends on when your game is, because I don't know what time your games are now.
This is the thing that keeps me away from other sports, is I don't want to do Saturday games in the bright morning. Like, no.
Yeah. A lot of
Eliana's
Eliana's, all of hers are scheduled anywhere between 11:30 and 2:30 as a start.
So bad.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what time Silas's are. But then it's like, on top of that, Lucas will want to do, he's not sportsy, but he's going to want to do robotics. And he does like archery. So archery's after school, and will probably be after school on a Tuesday or a Thursday. So that's going to take away one of those days. And then, of course, anytime that they have an after-school activity, like Eliana wanted to do running club, she can't because it's Mondays. But it's either going to interfere with both or either of Jack getting up from his nap and Silas getting off of the bus. And we only have one parent available at a time because the other of us is always at work. So, yikes. It's bad enough that Silas's dance class is on Friday nights, because it's like we can never take off on a Friday now.
Yeah.
And go do something.
I was going to say, when we started Aryan dance, it was Friday nights, and it was awful because anytime you wanted to take a 3-day weekend and like leave early or whatever, you couldn't.
And it's like I might like once or twice before January. Yeah. But after January, they start learning their routines.
I wonder if you'll be in the building the same time as Dance Dad now.
So I thought about that. Like, Brandon takes him on Fridays. Okay. So I wouldn't then. But when we had our first Wednesday, I was like, ooh, I wonder if I'm going to get to see Dance Dad. I haven't had to deal with this the last couple of years in our new district, and it's really great. But in the first district they were in, they were like, you have to have 4 2 or 3-pronged folders with pockets. 1 needs to be yellow, 2 need to be
That's
red,
our school.
and 1 has to be purple. And I'm
one
like,
yellow, 1 red, 1 green, whatever. And they have to have pockets, and they have to have prongs, and they have to have this. And
I bought the wrong folder one time, and boy, did I hear about it. And this year I wrote the school because I accidentally, when I made my Target order, instead of getting the spiral bound notebooks, I got the like regular binding ones. And I wrote just the middle school guy because I was like, elementary can suck it. I don't care. But the middle school teacher, I was like, hey, I ordered them online. I swear to God, I was looking at spiral bound, but they came as composition. Do you want me to go exchange it before? Because this was like 2 days before school started. And the teacher was like, nope, if you can write in it, I'm cool with it. I'm like, oh, thank
woo!
And they won't, like, some schools want you to bring a bunch of stuff. This school is like, here's like 8 items that we want your kid to have. And if you want a stylus, cool, but that's optional. And if you are in the first half of the alphabet, bring a box of Kleenex. And if you're in the last half of the alphabet, bring a thing of Clorox wipes.
Ours splits it by gender.
Yeah.
If you're a girl, bring this. If you're a boy, bring that.
Yeah.
But
I feel like this district we're in now is much more relaxed than the other one we were in. So I'm very sorry if you're one of those parents that has to spend $150 on supplies per child. But I think I spent $90 between 3 children this year, and it was very nice. You can find us on workingmomswine.com, patreon.com/workingmomswine, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and we'll see you next time. Bye!